Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our study on ministry to God through worship and prayer. Now, last time we talked about the premise of prayer as the greatest privilege of all creation, but we ended asking why. Why would God give us this undeserved access to influence His heart through worship and prayer? This even begs the question of the cause of creation. Why did God create us in the first place? Now, in this search, we can find a key indicator in what God Himself describes as His greatest commandment to His people. Of all of God's law, there's one instruction that supersedes all others in both the Hebraic tradition and also in the teachings of Jesus and in the New Testament. We find it in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. It all boils down to love. The motive and agenda of God's heart behind every person ever born is to experience love, is to experience enjoyment, to be enjoyed by God and to enjoy God. It's a beautiful picture of a God that's unlike any other God in human history. The testimony of Scripture is abundantly clear that love is God's greatest desire. Love is not only His desire, but it's His very nature and essence. Love is the basis of relationship with the God who is love. Look at 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Love is how we know God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. So easily drawn is the conclusion that the existence of all things is based on God's desire to love and be loved, to share an emotional and experiential relationship with His creation. Every spirit is crafted and every child born with the anticipation of love from its Creator. Every breath of our lungs, every beat of our hearts, and every awakening of the dawn is sustained by the desire of God to uniquely love and to experience the love of every individual in creation. You woke up this morning because God desires to experience your love and for you to experience His love today. It's beautiful. Such an incredible privilege, adding on to and compounding to the privilege of prayer. The motive and reasoning behind it is even more beautiful than prayer itself. It is this love, this nature, that motivated God to embrace human imperfection and become obedient to a torturous death on a cross, all for love. It is this love that likewise motivated the sacrifices of the martyrs, who counted death as gain and life as a fragrant offering of reciprocal affection to God. So the very cause of creation is based on this love, this desire, this enjoyment that God would have in His creation and that His creation would have in God. It's always been the intention of God to dwell with His people in close relationship. It's the very reason for our being. Of this, there can be no doubt that it is the cause of history to reconcile creation's relationship to its Creator. As this study will demonstrate in the weeks to come, ministry to God through continual worship and prayer is among the clearest demonstrations of affection for God. It's also an essential function and core imperative of God's people to express this kind of love for God according to His terms, according to His instruction, which we're going to get to in the coming videos. The highest cause of God's people is not to reach an audience of millions, but it's to reach the audience of one, to experience God's love and to express our love back to Him. It's a beautiful story of history, the story of creation, the story of the cross, the story of every day that we get to spend from that day forward, expressing our love to God and awaiting that complete reconciliation of history, that perfect reconciliation of love. It's just beautiful. So this really is, love is at the root. Love is the why. Love is the cause of creation. And this is another thing that we need to understand as we move forward. God's instruction about ministry to God and this access that we have to Him through worship and prayer is not a control issue or a power issue. It is a invitation of love. And so that's really the approach and the posture that we need to have as we move into this. Not to think of it as a rule or a law or some kind of a legalistic structure that God's forcing us to abide by, but it's an invitation to experience the very reason we were created and to experience the reconciliation of all creation in the midst of it. It's beautiful and glorious. More beautiful and more glorious than maybe any other thing we could be talking about is this experience of love that we get to share with Jesus. It's amazing. So I hope you take that to prayer this week and that this video encourages you. Take this to conversation with the Lord and just meditate on this, those scriptures of Deuteronomy 6, verse 4, and then 1 John 4, 7, and 8. And I will talk to you guys again next week.